Hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village. Convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. What another terrific Tuesday's edition of Talk Today. Even if you didn't get your savoring sampling of sea salt and dark chocolate, the day is still young. You never know what might transpire. But if you draw alongside and help us each, we'll get it together. Let's start things off with the Deputy Director over the Cayman's Red Cross, Miss Carolina Ferreira. I'll tell you about, all the good things they're up to and celebrate the 10th anniversary with her. And then some open line thereafter. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. Now, days like today when you get a chance to have an opportunity to celebrate and showcase with agencies like the Cayman's Red Cross, it reminds us how crucial it is to have that partnership. So join us remotely is Ms. Carolina Ferreira, the Deputy Director at the Red Cross. How are you, Mom? Good afternoon.
My friend, how are you?
Man, I am doing good. Thank you for asking. I even had one or two people, say to me, boy, you're looking exceptionally well, man. You must have been enjoying the chocolate, and I have been.
That's a secret, huh? It's the chocolate. Don't worry about fresh air or salt water. For you, it's chocolate.
Chocolate? I mean, think about it, when we go through this, imposed house arrest, and the like, you can't go outside, you can't go to the beach, you can't go on Sundays. Remember that time? Chocolate was the one that you went to. It kept you healthy and sane.
Well, yeah, we'll have to discuss that another time about the health and sanity of chocolate.
There you go. Oh, man. But all is well, and I think even though we try anyway to joke and jest and make light of things so that it doesn't weigh heavily, I'm truly grateful that you have been such a public champion and other partners with you, not just through MASH, but even the community volunteers, to appreciate how significantly important it is that we look, at confronting child sex abuse here. I think it is unspeakable, as you term it.
Yeah, no, it has been. I think that we get so caught up in the work and everything that we're trying to do to help build capacity and raise awareness, and to be able to be afforded the opportunity to just take stock is something that we're really, really privileged to be able to do. And I kid with my son that I have two babies, right? It's him and this project. So, and both of them are 10 now. So, it's a decade. It's a really long time, and I think it's it's something that it gives us the opportunity to really kind of see where have we made progress and changes, which is always great. But before we get too comfortable, sort of patting ourselves on the back, what else is left to do? Because so I appreciate the fact that you guys are giving us a platform and an opportunity to talk about this, because that's definitely one of our aims for this year, is not only to continue awareness and education, but really to mobilize the community to be able to take steps to be part of the solution, when it comes to these issues, and being more proactive in protecting our children.
And as I listen to you, and I'll be guided by you, because I think many times as adults, but as parents in particular, if we would recognize that the things that transpire in our society impact us all, impact our children. You just said you got two that you're responsible for. One is this project, and one is your offspring, as it were. But they go hand in hand, because the information, the protection, the sense of that community engagement will make it that much better for all of us, our own children and our neighbors' children and the children in our communities.
Oh, absolutely. I think that this notion that we somehow have things that we have been perpetuating for, certainly as long as I've been here, for 30 plus years, that there are certain sectors of our community that are untouched, that are far removed, that are separate, that are different, that are protected and whatnot. Those things are not true, and it's just like, and I think this notion that, that we see from the perspective of only people from this neighborhood or who attend this school or, who are from this particular background and whatnot. And we talk about it as if, our communities aren't impacted by the lives and choices of individuals,
Right.
And you'd think that certainly now in a raging pandemic and stuff, we're kind of seeing where it is that our choices sort of influence the greater outcome of things. I think it's one of those things that we need to take stock, because this is no different,
Right.
And it's just like you can't ignore the child that is vulnerable, the child that is being abused, the child that needs support, because at some point, that child may end up being that, that adult who is your employee, who is, dating one of your kids, who is, possibly, if it gets to that point, breaking into your house. Like you can't separate these things as if they're not going to have, going to be directly linked to us as a community. And that's why we talk about taking ownership of these issues.
And as I listen to you, I think, I don't know if it's the same in other parts of the world, but seemingly in the Caribbean, in particular, but since we focus on Cayman specifically, but given that we have people from all parts of the world, let's be cognizant of what may obtain in various jurisdictions. This notion that we distinguish between boy and girl, but they're children, they're young people, and if we can educate them equally, get them to understand the importance of their behavior, appreciate that they're impacted by it. Can you imagine, almost 50-50 when it comes to the young people, not even under the age of consent, engaging in behavior that they think is consensual, and sadly, sometimes not even consensual.
Oh, absolutely. And it's about this notion of understanding as well. And it's just like how the strict adherence to gender roles and norms actually does more damage than good when it comes to us being able to recognize how we make our kids vulnerable. It's like we're still having to raise awareness and educate people on things of, the vulnerability of voice specifically.
Right.
It's just like, we talk, girls are made vulnerable by things like, the rape myths, and, it's like in this notion of victim blaming and all of those things. And boys are made vulnerable in a sort of the other side of the coin, in terms of this idea of this notion that they can't be victimized, that even men can't be victims and whatnot. So they're harmful messages that are being sent to, kids of both the binary genders, but then all genders when you're talking about, a more holistic view of gender as a social construct that we keep sending out about, who can and can't be victimized. And the reality is that, all kids are vulnerable simply by being kids. Additional vulnerabilities are kind of, identified based on the kind of support system that they have, socioeconomic issues, or, just in terms of, kind of family structures and how things work. But really and truly, if we look at it like kids in and of themselves, because they're dependent on us, they are vulnerable. So, kind of writing off that a child would not be for some reason or another, it already kind of adds to their vulnerability because you're not able to recognize them as, being potential victims. And that's certainly something that we've done when it comes to boys.
And as I listen to you, I'm mindful of that, as you shared, we're 10 years on, and for some people, that is just, a blink of an eye. But this has been a consistent, concerted effort by many, and it's not just as you put it, a labor of love. Now, when we come back from the break, would you share with us, give us a perspective, as you said at the outset, what are our accomplishments? Are there things that we had hoped to achieve that yet, to be realized? Are there things that we've learned and that we're hoping that, will help us to make it better? I mean, just give us as much as you can so that we appreciate that this is something that impacts us, as you have shared, repeatedly.
Perfect. I'd love to do that. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, when we return, we'll continue the discussion. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Subway makes it easy for you to stay on top of your health and wellness goals with our Fresh Fit menu options. Choose from 5 Fresh Fit Subway sandwiches with only 450 calories or less per 6-inch sub. Turkey breast, veggie, oven roasted chicken, black forest ham, sweet onion chicken teriyaki, or make your 6-inch Fresh Fit sub into a salad or wrap prepared with fresh vegetables. For a full menu and nutritional information, visit subway.ky. Subway, eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
How can you take your business from good to great and thrive in the new normal? By finding the smartest, most powerful IT solutions to optimize your business operations. And now, Digicel Business Hub is making it simple for you. High-speed Wi-Fi, mobile and office phones, IT security, Microsoft Office with Teams, and much more. Everything your business needs to level up in the new normal. Get world-class IT for your business with Digicel Business Hub. Sign up today. Call us on 623-2499 or visit our website www.digicelbusiness.com for more information.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And on the line we have Ms. Carolina Ferreira, the Deputy Director of the Cayman Red Cross, and we're talking about, the 10th anniversary of protection starts here. And Carolina, thanks again. I mean, this must be not just laborious, arduous task as it was, but it must be something that, for many of us, should resonate in a way when we think that our children, the most vulnerable, we said, in our society, need our continued protection and provision.
Absolutely, yeah. No, and it's a really difficult, topic, right? I mean, it's just like, who wants to think about these things happening? And not only that, like, who wants, for somebody to come and tell them that, it's not stranger danger that applies to these particular situations, but rather the people that you know and love and trust, who are known to be the greatest offenders when it comes to, these crimes that are committed against children. Mm-hmm. So, and even the fact that we can have this dialogue now in and of itself is a huge gain, because, we did so much work with the media to begin with, and I mean, media was very supportive once it kind of came out. But if you even look and compare at just sort of just simply sort of the number of cases and situations that were being reported then versus what is being reported now. That has been a huge gain in terms of just sort of breaking the silence on the issue, But even for us, in terms of sort of when we were looking at this, the intention was not at the beginning for it to become this project. It was really going to be this public service announcement campaign, and we're going to give people, kind of hit people over the head with some, hard-hitting, thought-provoking, PSAs that really called out some of the most problematic behaviors and statistics and whatnot that we had seen. But it was a fellow advocate who turned around and is just like, well, that's all great, but then what? Because I think that's something that, we don't ask often enough in Cayman, which is, yes, we do these things, it's like we have the awareness and all that part of it, but then what? Like, we don't really do anything to build capacity. We don't do anything to kind of have people who want to do something about it be able to educate themselves. So the entire project and what we've done has really kind of come up from the answer to that question. Then what? So how do you empower and what do you do?
There are a couple of things I want to ask of you as you were sharing that. And maybe first, the notion that as we look at what has been happening and increased reports, let me not ask a leading question. Is that because there are more reporting or more incidents occurring that we've now seen the statistical increase?
Right. So I think it's important for people to recognize the fact that, in general, we've never really kept very great stats to begin with, right? And then, of course, there were other things that kind of added to an increase in referring. One, of course, was the changes in the Children Act 2012, which established mandatory reporters. So basically meaning that once someone either discovered abuse, had a child disclose abuse, or that they suspected abuse, that they're mandated by law to make that referral. Yeah? You're not mandated to investigate. That's not your role. But as a mandated reporter, you make the referral, and then the appropriate agencies, conduct the investigation to determine if, what has and has not been happening. Yeah. So that in and of itself, in terms of the law. And then obviously, the education part of it and the education component, which has been undertaken both through the Darkness to Light Stewards of Children training, as well as additional training courses that we've put on, that the Ministry of Education has put on, to really get these mandated reporters to understand their responsibilities in law about this. And it's just like, what exactly is sort of reasonable suspicion and all of those things. So all of those things, I think, have come together, and it's not as if abuse wasn't taking place in Cayman. We know that it was, and it's just like we all have, anecdotal stories about, some family or child or another that we know of. But it's now, sort of those things kind of converged as far as having the education, having the law that backs it up, the creation of the MASH unit, which then became the central hub for collecting those referrals. And so now you could see in terms of, how it's all coming together. And the increase in number of referrals are actually very, very significant from when the MASH unit was established in 2017 to now. You've seen, this huge, like right off the bat in 2017, you were already seeing an 80% increase in the number of referrals that were made between 2016 and 2017. So, and it's just like, and it's been creeping up every year you get more and more referrals. So at some point, we should be able to see it sort of taper off, but right now, it's certainly something that we believe that it's more along the lines of giving us a better idea as to what's happening in the community, as opposed to it being that there are more instances of, child abuse that's happening.
And as I listen to you, I'm mindful of how we look at things. You were sharing sometimes just maybe over the years some of the statistics, and some of them were shocking PSAs for some that should cause people. Are there particular statistics that have come to light that you think the public might actually find to be, for them, not just shocking, but an eye-opener?
No, I mean, it's just as part of our Cayman context debrief that we do, because obviously, we've had to move the Stewards of Children training to an online platform just because of issues around capacity related to COVID. But when we're doing that, we actually pull on information that was that we've been able to gather from partner agencies. So the National Drug Council Student Drug Use Survey, for instance, and you may remember that PAHO came to Cayman and did an adolescent health and sexuality survey back in 2012, 2013. So when we're looking at that in terms of what we actually have by way of those local stats, which of course, still need to be, we still need to update, more regularly. The PAHO statistics, I think, that come to mind is that, of the respondents, 48% had actually stated that they had been, in fact, sexually active. And of those, 3% reported that their first sexual experience was by the age of 7.
Wow.
So it's, similarly, when it's just like, and there's a huge number that it's just, 75% of them reported the first sexual experience before the age of 16, which is the legal age of consent, which of course then, ends up raising all kinds of issues around, coercion, abuse, exploitation, and the like. Mm-hmm. So those are some things that definitely were flagged in that PAHO 2013 report, along with, the questions of intergenerational sex, which is basically defined as when a child is having sex with someone who's 10 years or more their senior. And as many as 4% of the female respondents ages 15 to 19 responded that their first experience was with somebody who was 10 years or more older. Mm. So, so we have those things that are, that are coming up, that are happening. And again, you have to remember that, this was respondents ages 15 to 19, right? And it's just like, there's only so much that you can really end up asking kids about in terms of what is happening to them. One thing that I'm hoping that in the future at some point that we're able to do is a childhood exit survey to kind of get a better idea in terms of what our prevalence rate would be. Because when Darkness to Light was introduced to Cayman, mm-hmm. and this was not by the Red Cross, it was by another agency in the early 2000s, the prevalence that they had determined when they were, kind of trying to figure out how big of the issue was that it was 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys in Cayman would be sexually abused by their 18th birthday. So, and this was a worse statistics than even the one in the U.S. at that same time. Mm-hmm. So we do have some, things that we've been able to collect over the years. The National Drug Council has a few questions as well that they've been able to ask and to just kind of help to create certain, a baseline, if you would, of information in terms of what's happening in the country.
In the absence of statistics for a second, how much of this you think in our society that we are cognizant of? That for some, we may not know that it's 50% in this case, or it's 75% in that case, but just as a society, generally being aware of what's happening in the society, do you think that we know that, but we just accept it as the norm, we turn a blind eye to it?
No, I think people are. I think it's just the same way that when you and I were teenagers and our parents had no clue, and it's just like I'm afraid that remains true of I think a significant majority for numerous reasons, right? Mm. And it's just like whether it's from the perspective of again the generational trauma that's caused by some of these things and the difficulty that people may have in identifying and recognizing sort of vulnerabilities for their children should they have been victimized by this. That could be a component, whether it's just sort of, willful denial and or ignorance, mm-hmm. Right. False sense of security that's created by our, people in financial bubbles that tend to think that, they're somehow above or removed from the situation, mm-hmm. And I think, and unfortunately, the way in which we have been socialized to not talk about, sex, sexuality, and all of these things to the point where it's to the detriment of everyone. Because, comprehensive sex and sexuality education is child safeguarding work. You know, and it's just like if kids are taught early on, you know, the correct names for their body parts, not the PP and the VV and the vajayjay, but, you know, call a penis and a vagina. If they know that, then you're giving them language. You're not infantilizing their bodies. You are, you know, you're normalizing things that should be normal to begin with, which is the fact that this is the words that you use to describe these particular parts of your body. If you're you know, empowering them with information about, you know, sort of the rules around those special parts of their bodies as well, and you're talking to them about it, and you're opening the lines of communication, and because there's no one magical thing that you can do, like, you know, once that's going to protect kids and whatnot. You know, you have to make a decision, and you have to choose to safeguard every single day, you know, and so there are lots of aspects when it comes to, yes, the schools are now have to introduce child safety lessons, which is a huge gain, but we still haven't really made any moves when it comes to, you know, comprehensive sexuality education more broadly, which is still a huge gap, you know. So there are all these things that are kind of creating this, and we have this transient community of people who are coming, you know, to our country and who don't fully understand certain things or make assumptions about certain things, you know, and we don't have very clear sort of house rules either, right? There is no, you know, when it comes to these, all of it. So yeah, I think that it's an ongoing educational thing, just from the, you know, the transient part of our community to begin with, but definitely I think that even amongst our local Caymanian population, there's a lot more that, you know, in terms of the engagement that needs to be done and kind of getting people to the table beyond this topic that people simply, for whatever reason, have not wanted to or been able to engage with.
Okay, so after this short break, let's maybe talk about that engagement, you know, those things that perhaps need to happen. We can talk about what's coming up, you know, on the 10th as well, but we've got two other things we want to ask you as well. When we come back, we're always learning so much more from Ms. Carlina Farah. So please, stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
You know what I love to do with my family? Go fishing. I can put the bait on and cast and reel the line all by myself. My mommy and daddy say when they were little, there were plenty more fish to catch, but now there are lots more people fishing, so it's harder to find them. That's why we have marine parks now. They set some areas aside so the fish there can have babies and grow bigger. Then they swim out to other areas where I can catch them. Having the marine parks means there will still be fish there when I'm grown up and fishing with a family of my own.
For more info, download the Cayman DOE app or visit doe.ky.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks for joining us. Joining us remotely is the Deputy Director over the Cayman's Red Cross as we talk about the 10th anniversary of the Protection Starts Here campaign. It's Ms. Carolina Ferreira. And thanks again for not just joining us and sharing and sending an invitation to all to join us on the 10th, as we'll ask you more about that. But a very difficult, subject to broach sometimes. Probably even parents to their children, because we feel uncomfortable. But important work nonetheless, right, Ms. Carolina?
Absolutely, yes. And we always sort of remind people when we're doing this, like, you don't start with this stuff, right? You work your way up to this, First you kind of get over the fact that, I've just said the word penis 3 times on live radio, and then, it's just like, and you use that terminology at home, and it's just like, and and that's how you started. You started in an age-appropriate way, so, and it becomes sort of part of a learning curve, I think our parents recognize that there's this humongous learning curve that happens when you become a parent, right, and responsible for somebody else. And so accepting that, this is going to be something that you're going to need to learn, possibly get support on, and, you're going to maybe try and fail a couple of times and whatnot, but this is part of your learning as they're learning, because, and it's just like you're in trying to equip them, you may be addressing some of the things that were never addressed with you specifically, So I think it's recognizing that and just letting people know that there's a place to start with this, and it doesn't start off in this part of the conversation. You build up to this part of the conversation,
right. And that's it. Sort of like exercise. You don't run a marathon on the first day, right?
Exactly.
You referenced some of the things that have been sort of wins over the years in terms of education and the formal education setting, but I think I heard you say that comprehensive sexuality education isn't there yet in our curriculum. Make sure I understood. What would that look like?
Exactly.
What is a comprehensive sexuality education? What does that look like?
We've all grown up with essentially what's been abstinence-only education, right? So basically that just means that, you're told to abstain until marriage and there's no other dialogue around anything else, yeah? Mm-hmm. So comprehensive sex education talks not only about, that aspect of, don't have sex or you'll die, but rather, talking about other things along the lines of, just like, well, let's discuss what might make you ready, in terms of how do you know that you're going to be ready for sex? What are your body parts? How does reproduction work? And it's just like, how do you protect yourself should you decide to be, sexually active? How do condoms work? How do dental dams work? And it's just like, what does a healthy relationship look like, both sexually and not sexually? And it's just, it's about kind of, and then, of course, these parts of it, when you're talking to it in terms of, it's like safety and awareness and, this, what is sexual exploitation of children or images that exploit children, right? We keep using this horrible term, child pornography, which is not at all adequate, and the world has moved away from it, but it's really exploitative images of children, right? And when it comes to that, and it's empowering and kind of moving with the times in terms of talking about, the nudes and, and it's just like, and what does it mean if, a picture of you is out on the internet, and if you sent it to somebody and if you really love them, but then, it's just like to have all of these conversations. What is sextortion, and how does it happen, and how do kids end up in this situation, and where do you go for help? Mm-hmm. And moving away from sort of this very shame-based sex education that we've all had, where it's something that, you talk about it from the perspective of, well, it's sacred and it should only happen here, but nobody has any real idea as to what a healthy sexual relationship looks like, because the understanding is that it will all sort of magically fall into place once you have that ring on your finger, and that's not true, So that's what it is. It's about age-appropriate information that's given to kids at different ages and stages that kind of, gives them a more realistic sort of understanding of the dynamics of sex and sexuality. It empowers them, not in terms of saying, well, you should or you should not do this, but rather talks about, options and consequences, and really gets them to think through about their own values and their beliefs for themselves, not just the ones that, they're being surrounded by, so that whenever they make that decision, they actually make a decision. It's not like, oh, I didn't think about it and it just happened. Because I think that's one of the things that we've managed to instill in kids when it comes to, abstinence-only education, is this idea of, well, sometimes things just happen, as opposed to, no, it's just, you have ownership of your body and of your decisions and all of these things, and you should be thinking about these things,
So. As you share, and I am mindful of the time, I wondered to what extent this animal that we call social media comes into play. How does that help us not only to educate and inform, but perhaps is part of the challenge in navigating so that our children are no longer, not anymore a disadvantage, to put it nicely?
Well, I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is no such thing as a safe, unsupervised space for kids online. Yeah? And it's just like, it doesn't exist. The people who develop the apps and the tools and the phones and whatnot do not give access to these things to their children until they're well over the age of 13 and 14 and whatnot.
These are the developers.
The developers, yes, the people who make the money off of us buying these, $1,000
Yep.
super handy things on here. And similarly, the people who work in, like with missing and exploited children and whatnot do the same. And it's just like, and we keep our kids away from social media and unsupervised access because of the fact that it's like the danger is coming into your home, yeah? And it's about, and it's like in the way in which we have framed social media and devices has been, let me get you occupied by going into essentially, this lion's den of things, and it's just like, but I think you're safe because you're sitting right next to me. The most horrible thing that I have ever heard was when we were in Alabama in 2018. And an FBI agent was talking about how, perpetrators were using different platforms and everything else. And of course, you can, I use Snapchat and the way that it works and where, the messages are automatically deleted and all of that. Like, to me, like, I can't wrap my head around Snapchat in terms of who was it created it and for what purposes. So you have, like Snapchat makes sense and, even like Instagram makes sense and all that stuff. But, and talking about how they had cases where people were using a platform like Pinterest, which looks to be, completely harmless because you're essentially posting things of interest and whatnot. But, it's just like, no, there's no safe space. And gave an example of this kid who was, I think, 12 going on 13, who'd gotten caught up in the situation where she was being extorted by this, this person, in terms of after deciding to send some nude photographs and whatnot. And this is what sextortion is, which is where the perpetrator starts extorting the victim for additional images and sometimes videos of things, and somehow ended up to the point of doing such psychological harm with this little girl that convinced her to involve the younger sibling into these horrific acts. So here's a child who is a victim who then ends up victimizing another child in a way to try to keep this person from essentially ruining their lives. So, in talking, the FBI agent was then talking about, kind of how do you handle this with the family, because the family can't wrap their heads around the fact that, this child was a victim, but then that she went and she did this to her own sibling. And, and it's just like, so where do you start, And it's like, and these are awful, horrible things that are happening in the world. And we are not immune to them just because we have not heard of them yet, or because we don't, it's like we don't know it and everything. Like, it's like we know horrible things are happening, and it's just like, and if we're trying to keep our kids safe, we need to be more proactive in the way that we're protecting them. So yeah, social media, the internet, everything else, it's, and it's like unsupervised. It's you're inviting perpetrators into your home without even being aware of it.
Indeed. Well, You make a very difficult, subject, one that we can all draw alongside it, and support, share, and learn. Now on Thursday, I think there's something transpiring. Could you close and give us an invitation?
On Thursday, yes. Thank you, Sterling. I appreciate it. So the aim of the 10th anniversary year, so for the whole of 2022, you're going to see a lot more in terms of messages from us. If we get to a point where we can host additional events, we'll see how that goes, because obviously we're working within the context of safety and all of that. But on Thursday, we're having the launch of the 10th anniversary year via a virtual event, which was the Protection Star Tier partners. So that will include representatives from HSA, the Ministry of Education, Science Creative Studios, and the Employee Assistance Program, along with the Red Cross, are going to rescreen the Unspeakable Confronting Child Sexual Abuse in the Cayman Islands documentary, which is 30 minutes. And then we're going to have an interactive panel discussion with persons who either attend on the Zoom call directly or who are on our Facebook live stream. And I want to thank Radio Cayman for agreeing to share that live stream as well on their page. But if people have questions and the like, they should either log on to the Zoom call directly. All the information is on the Red Cross's Facebook page, or they can get on the Red Cross Facebook page on Thursday at 6:30 and just kind of catch it there, because we're going to be monitoring those comments as well. And the aim is really to kind of sit down and have a discussion about, okay, well, look at how far we've come, but look at how much further we have yet to go. And, what is it that you can do in terms of as an individual, as a family, and, as a citizen, as a voter, what else can you do to, bring this to the forefront and help us move this issue along?
Yeah, and I think this is where, as we partner, as we draw alongside, as we use the various platforms, and as parents in particular, we become more informed, educated, and at the very least understand that we have support. There are other parents likewise. We can make this discussion one that is instructive, but creating that safe environment that we're aiming for. Hey, thanks very much, Ms. Carlino.
No, thank you. I always appreciate the fact that you don't shy away from this, and that you've been, Radio Cayman has been a partner with us since the very start of this. So thank you, Sterling, and thank you to the team at Radio Cayman for always giving us a platform. And
thank you to the Red Cross in particular, but all the other partner agencies. And it is, as you shared, a difficult discussion, but it's one that is absolutely imperative that we have. So trust it goes well, and we're here to help any time and in a way. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see you on Thursday. All right. Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. Thank you. You too. All right. I'm going to pause and take a short break. When we come back, we've got a few minutes to have a chance to talk to the president over at the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association, President Clara Smith. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. Received a report of a stolen white 2000 Toyota Mark II, registration number 126013, which was last seen at about 4 p.m. on Friday, February 4th, and discovered missing at about 6:30 a.m. on Saturday, February 5th. The vehicle had been parked at an address on Whitman Seymour Road in Georgetown. The vehicle is described as having scratches below the right headlight, sun damage to the roof, and faded paint. In international news, French President Emmanuel Macron has told reporters that President Vladimir Putin assured him that Russian forces would not ramp up the crisis near Ukraine's borders. I secured an assurance there would be no deterioration or escalation, he said before meeting Ukraine's leader. However, Russia said any suggestion of a guarantee was not right. Former Pope Benedict XVI has acknowledged that errors were made in the handling of sexual abuse cases when he was Archbishop of Munich. In a letter released by the Vatican, the former pontiff asked forgiveness for any grievous fault, but denied personal wrongdoing. A German report into the Catholic Church alleged that he failed to act over 4 child sex abuse cases. Then known as Josef Ratzinger, he was Archbishop of Munich from 1977 to 1982. Athletes have been hitting out at Olympic organizers with complaints about freezing conditions and quarantine rules pouring in. Beijing kicked off the Winter Games 4 days ago, promising it would be streamlined, safe and splendid. Some have lauded China's efforts to ensure relatively virus-free games, but some participants say they are living and training in dismal conditions, prompting them to lobby organizers for improvements. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Sollins.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, or toll free, the complaints flow, 1-800-534-8255. Then you can WhatsApp 925-3261. In a bit, we got the Cayman Civil Service Association President Clara Smith giving us a shout and sharing our thoughts on some things that we want you to not just be informed about, but be involved and engage. And to me, the best way sometimes to know what is happening is to hear it beforehand and hear it directly from those who have the information to share. But in the meantime, as we sort of play back in our heads the information that Ms. Carolina Ferreira just relayed, it certainly is something that weighs heavily on you. And even though it's been 10 years in a partnership with her, and over the time getting the opportunity to have these discussions with various panel members, it's not an easy topic. I know Ms. Carolina said the Dr. Stellite wasn't introduced by the Red Cross and it came in the 2000s, but it was the early 90s that I did the course here like that. It was the whole day, and well, it's interesting. Let's go to the phones, huh? Good afternoon and welcome. Good afternoon, thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Bruce Mamba here. I believe you've got a guest coming in.
We have a guest that will access the remote link in order to be more efficient, but she has not yet engaged. So when she does, we'll let you know.
Okay, well, then I'll try to be brief. It was going to be a brief call anyway. Now, I missed most of the call with the previous caller, who you say was from the Civil Service Association?
No, the previous guest was the Deputy Director of the Red Cross, Carolina Ferreira. And then we were expecting the President for the Civil Service Association to join us remotely in a bit.
Well, then my call is even more appropriate, because maybe what I mentioned to you, you might mention to them to find out exactly what their response is. I want to talk something about the work permit issue. The work permit issue, I watched OC's show last Friday, and the DG was on together with Gloria McField and I think Ms. Adams talking about the same issue, about work permits and Caymanians getting jobs and so on, or failing to get jobs. And there were a number of people who called who were complaining about the same issue, saying, look, our people can't get jobs, and what is government doing? And the answers to me were very much the same ones which are given, where we are doing our best and all that. Now, I empathize with those callers, and I noticed that there's an issue of the Real Estate Brokers Association. I think there's an issue as to whether, yet again, whether the real estate brokers, that should be an area which is reserved for Caymanians. Now, for me, Dwayne, three simple issues. You want to solve the problem about these issues of Caymanians not getting jobs, three things. One, amend Section 26 of the Public Service Management Law so that if a Caymanian is qualified for a job, you give them the job without advertising it unless there are some problems of performance, because that's what other countries do. Two, amend Section 6 of the immigration regulations so as to make it obligatory for everybody applying for a work permit to submit a succession plan. What are you doing to train Caymanians? Then 3, have certain Caymanians, certain jobs reserved for Caymanians only. Yes, you can't do that carelessly. You have to be very careful, especially now that they've got these websites and all these IT things where they can find out exactly how many Caymanians, bricklayers and so forth. They should be able to say, in this case, we've got so many 100 bricklayers, we are not giving work permits for that. If they do those things, Dwayne, if they do those things, you will see the change in the job market within a matter of weeks. And I think that the whole debate about this matter is going to change. But the problem is, to me, government after government, they know that this is what they are supposed to do, but they have never done it. But they keep giving this, they keep giving these solutions which are not really solving anything. So I would be grateful once the guest comes on to put these issues to him and say, do you think this will help your members? And if so, do you think there will be ever any government which will ever do this? Because for me, I'm starting to ask the question, is there any government which will do this? Because every government which comes in is not doing this. And let me close by saying this. The problem in Cayman, I think, is that there has been what is called in World Bank circles state capture. This is where the private sector has gotten hold of the government to such an extent that the government now is no longer meeting the interests of the people as a whole, but merely meeting the interests of a few limited people. And to me, the way I see it, the reason why policies are not changing, it's because I don't believe the governments are deciding major policy anymore. It is these handlers who are outside, who don't change, and whose policies don't change, who are making governments do whatever they want to do. That's why it doesn't matter which government is in. They do a few good things here and there, but these fundamentals have not changed. So I should be grateful if the chairperson of the Civil Service Association can say whether they would agree with this.
Right. Well, we will certainly, first off, thank you for the call. Certainly want to invite you, if you choose later on to come back. Your last point, the jobs only for Caymanians, is something that we could expound on further. But we're going to join her momentarily, and maybe talk to you again later, if your schedule allows.
Well, yeah, I'll be grateful to be able to call back in and engage them a little more directly. I hope so.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we'll pause quickly, take a short break, come back, and by phone join the president of the Cayman Civil Service Association, Ms. Clara Smith.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land. Explore your sister islands.
Henry Watson Ruddy, ISO, 1870 to 1943. Henry Watson Ruddy came to Cayman Brac as a young man with his father, William H. Ruddy, who was the first Baptist missionary to Cayman Brac and started the Baptist mission there. Dr. Henry Ruddy was born and educated in Jamaica and came to Cayman Brac as a young man. He was one of the first civil servants in the Sister Islands, holding the post of Collector of Customs. He was also the only medical dispenser on Cayman Brac which had no doctor. He mixed and dispensed medicines and also did minor surgeries, saving numerous lives. At times, he assisted his wife, Julia Ann Nee Lazari, a midwife who delivered nearly all the babies born on the Brac during Dr. Ruddy's term of service. He was also a school teacher and a preacher. On his retirement, his son Aston took over his government responsibilities.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land. Explore your sister islands.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And now we have the honor to welcome via the phone the president of the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association, President Clara Smith. Hey, good afternoon, Ms. Clara. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon, Sterling Dwayne. I'm doing fine. How are you?
I am very blessed, indeed, very thankful. Just giving, as much as I possibly can, a gracious spirit for a grateful day,
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent.
Now, I know that the Civil Service Association has been invaluable, not just to its members, but by default to the entire civil service and the wider community by extension. Now, there's a general meeting tomorrow, I think, where it all goes on. Sometimes we miss it and go, oh, that was 2 o'clock, and now it's 6 o'clock. Oh, that was yesterday, and now it's tomorrow. So,
Yes, it is tomorrow. Tomorrow, February 9th at 12:30 to 1:30. It's via Zoom. We hope to be very efficient with our time, so we know that everybody has limited time for their lunch hour, and everybody is incredibly busy. But we have some important things that we want to discuss with our members prior to when we get to our annual general meeting, which is a slightly different thing where we're going to be voting. So we have a few things we want to discuss tomorrow, and we are excited to share them with our members.
And this is it. I mean, so for the members, it's remote, it's at their convenience. I guess most of us are very comfortable at accessing these platforms and engage in their meetings. So all we have to do is log in and listen, and then we can contribute if we so choose.
Yeah, all you have to do is log in, listen. We will, as always, we will take, I think we can take discussion via chat. I think people's mics will be disconnected just so that we can flow the meeting through, but the chat space will be open. And of course, we would love to have met with our membership in person, but we want to absolutely reduce as much risk as possible because our members are frontline workers, and we don't need anybody getting sick because we want to hold the meeting in person.
Mm-hmm. I think this is where we start to appreciate how important it is to not just be mindful of where we are, in terms of the human landscape, but to be cognizant and respectful of each other's time. So an efficient, effective meeting, you have. We're just having a quick exchange with a member who's asking if they can attend. Could they send in some points for consideration?
Oh, absolutely. They can they can contact me at any time. I use my, we have our own email address. It's CICSA@candw.ky or @candywacky. So at any time, any member or potential member can write us and give us feedback, talk about activities they would like to see. One of the things what we really want to discuss tomorrow is formalizing our structure, and we want to formalize our structure to make us more efficient and effective for our members. We have been working, and we've been working really hard all of this time, but we've been doing so mostly in an informal setting.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to, we've gone off and done a strategic plan for the Civil Service Association, and we really have some auspicious goals that we want to achieve. One of the things, like you said, is that we do want our members to have easy access to us, and for us to have easy access to our members, and so that we can understand what their concerns are, what their needs are, What are the things that we can do as an association that represents them and is advocating for them? What are the things that we can do? What can we do better? What can we stop doing? So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to work on really connecting with our membership and managing our membership information. So, you know, we kind of have an old-fashioned way right now, so we want to leverage modern technology to keep the information and also to access members as we need it and for them to access to us as they need it.
You know, and this is where I think maybe as I look at this message from one of our members, as I put it, maybe an opportune time to say to those listening, we're talking about the Civil Service Association, not the credit union. For whatever reason, sometimes we conflate the two. So it's not the CINO entity.
Yes. And that's one of the things that we want to. However, one thing we have to say is that we did start the credit union. It is from the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association that the credit union came forward. So it is a separate entity now, and we are doing different things. And certainly, though, we always do have a connection back to the credit union. Usually one of our management council or executive board members is also on the credit union executive board. So we do have a little kind of automatic feed-in year to year. But we are not the credit union. We're doing other things. The credit union is a monetary savings and lending institution where we advocate for and behalf of the civil service for whatever needs they may have outside of the money stuff. So work-related complaints, health and safety, just general things, pay raises, you know, all of these things that happen in a workplace that sometimes employees don't feel empowered enough to advocate directly for themselves, or sometimes they feel empowered but nothing happens. So we can step in on that situation and help that employee out.
All right. And as we speak to President Clara Smith at the Cayman Civil Service Association, we have two, I guess, questions. I was phrasing them as questions. One is asking if the Civil Service Appeals body, is that part of the Civil Service as is, or is it under the ambit?
CSAC, the Civil Service Appeals Commission, is a government entity. They are responsible for when a chief officer has made a decision, or by extension his HODs, they've made a decision that the employee doesn't agree with reference to that employee specifically.
Right.
So they decided that you weren't the person to be selected for a post, but you felt that looking at yourself and the counterparts that you were in fact the correct person for the post. Then you can go to the Appeals Commission. And the Civil Service Association does represent individuals at the Appeals Commission.
And then, great. And then the other one is, maybe I'll just ask you to sort of remind members and prospective members in particular, the eligibility. So if you are a civil servant, or you were at any point, and now you're either retired...
For the Civil Service Association, the criteria is very straightforward. Either once you are employed with the Cayman Islands government or any SAGC, then you can basically write us and we will accept you. Now, we also are allowing our existing members and pensioners to join as well. So pensioners have a different rate that they pay, and obviously there's a slight difference in terms of the advocacy and things that the pensioners would need. So it's a different grouping or category of our members. But yes, it is extended.
Now, for clarity, if you were once a civil servant, but now you're either self-employed or employed in the private sector, outside of government or the statutory authorities or the government-owned companies.
Yeah, if you're not currently employed with the Cayman Islands government, you can't join the Civil Service Association at this time.
Okay. Well, which would make sense, right? If you don't...
Right, yes.
Right. Now, again, for tomorrow, you just want members either to send any particular questions or comments that they have, or log in.
Absolutely. We want everybody to log in. We have to remember that there is a power in numbers. There's a power in unity. So we need members to be as engaged as possible. And like I said, we are going to really try to improve our engagement with members, and we hope that members improve their engagement with us. So tomorrow, February 9th at 12:30, we're going to have an hour-long session where we're going to talk about our strategic plan, and we're going to also quickly discuss the upcoming elections and the positions that we have, and ask for any interest that there may be. We will also be discussing our fee structure.
And as you said, you want to look at formalizing, so the more members weigh in, the better it is, and from there then we can get a decision, and then that be disseminated to the rest of the membership.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's always good, you guys have been accessible.
It's always good. It's always good to be on Talk Today.
Susan says the same thing, No, if you wish to reiterate anything and you want to remind us of, please do so. But we want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day just to remind members. 12:30 tomorrow.
12:30 tomorrow on Zoom. We're sending out emails to the members that we do have in our current system. And I think we will be posting it somewhere public where members can access it easily. And no password required. Just hit the link, and it will put you on.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. And then, of course, public invitation is there that following the meeting, any point at any time, if we can be of value, just let us know. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
I look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow.
Tomorrow, 12:30. All right. Thank you very much, President Clara.
Bye-bye.
This is where many see the platforms that exist and can leverage them in a very meaningful, beneficial manner. Let's do that. She did say that there's strength in numbers, there is safety in numbers. And as a body, the Civil Service Association not only serves its members, but helps to improve the effectiveness and efficiency within the civil service. In a time especially like this. All right, well, if Susan answers the phones or if you call, I'll certainly engage and listen to you as much as you wish to talk and have dialogue. If sometimes you just want it to be like you're an actor in a Shakespearean play and you're probably doing your part as a soliloquy, well, that's fine too. Not always the most, but sometimes people just need an opportunity to say what is it that they feel needs to be shared. Well, we want to hear from you. And if you prefer to send us a voice note, or if you want to send it, text to speech, or you want to type it up with your hands, WhatsApp us, 925-3261, and we can share with you. As we go into the break, though, I did not ask directly. I will send it across. The caller prior to President Clara's joining us, comments relative to the whole issue of employment for some, and some feel unemployed, but are there things that can be had? Maybe you might want to weigh in on that. You might want to talk about some other things. So we've had just today alone, I'll go back during the break and count again. There were 7 messages, seemingly distinct messages, asking about the recently disclosed Auditor General's report about the spending of the last government. Something you want to ask questions about. The gist of the questions, I think, were twofold. Okay, it was disclosed. Are there sanctions for disclosing about why, why beat it up if it's out there? What can we do to make sure, what consequences will fall? But why shouldn't a government do what it wants to do? They're still in power. Well, you may have some perspectives on that. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. for all occasions and celebrations. Let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
A couple means two. Whether it's your spouse, significant other, or bestie, couples who sweat together stay together. King Sports Center is offering a gym and bowling special this Valentine period. Get 2 annual Powerhouse gym memberships for $750 starting from February 6th and ending on the 14th. Receive a free self-defense class for 2 upon purchase. At Kingpin Bowling, couples can get 2 games and 2 glasses of wine for only $40. The bowling offer is from February 11th to the 13th only. For more info, call us at 946-5464. That's 946-5464. King's Sports Center, your second home for fitness and recreation, celebrating 20 years of service.
You can now book and pay online for your certified lateral flow test at www.hsa.ky/appointment. It's fast, easy, and convenient. Certified LFTs are $25 per test per person. HSA's testing center is located at 131 Center, McClendon Drive, behind Foster's Airport. Walk-ins for certified LFTs are also available. Need a PCR test for travel? These are now only $75. Visit hsa.ky/appointment for more information.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks very much for joining us. As we invite you to share your thoughts with us, reminded, I think it was last Tuesday, we had an independent investigative journalist, Ms. Kayla Young, as our guest, and we're talking about a piece, and I had an early presentation. Gone are the days when we do more and more in person. It seems to be that everything is now, electronically and remotely, and students were considering career options. I shared with them, they can leverage their interests in social media. They have phones, and it's not just about being citizen journalists. It's about being, a trained professional, doing a very noble endeavor, and answering a calling. Many of us like to read and to write. We may use our skill set in different ways. And as I was sharing with them, here is someone, and there are other examples, but maybe more of us need to understand the importance of it. So whether you, as I prefer, I love radio. If he doesn't mind, Mr. Loxley Banks, for instance, is a phenomenal example of what a career in radio can look like. And if you harken back to the days, of radio, still is the same. Now there's a melding of the audio with the video and all the other platforms, but some like to hear things, some are more visual. But if you are a truly, professionally trained journalist, and you are doing reports, investigating things, doing documentaries, call in to question and seeking to hold certain behaviors to account, or whether it's one individual, whether it's a government entity, or whether it's a particular industry. It may just be, one business that whose practices relative to its policies, its pricing, and the way it's perhaps positioning itself could be predatory. It could be that it's acting in such a way that it may end up not just monopolizing the market, but it may actually be marginalizing much of the society. Think to the international media reports of development, so to speak, or mining and manufacturing, and so was the developing parts of the world, or whether it was the strip mining of the days gone by, whether it was the lack of safety protocols as people were going to the mines, whether the materials that they were excavating posed significant health risk. Well, the question of the media, if there isn't, and I think today's world now we have adopted or phrased the whistleblower, the legislation that emanates because of those activities to protect those individuals. Sometimes some would say some jurisdictions have incentivized people coming forward to do the right thing because then they're able to be compensated for it. Now, some would share that in the absence of that compensation, these individuals will probably not come forward because they know, even though they're doing the right thing, they'll never find employment. They'll never be able to move forward. And sometimes, not saying anything, they still run the risk because it'll be presumed that they were the ones involved. You go back to examples in history, whether it's the pollutants emanating from some factory into some river and stream and some waterway. Maybe it's the leaching of certain chemicals because of the way the factory was constructed and the lack of effective maintenance, and that lead or some of the chemical gets into the groundwater supply. Now, these are not things that happened decades or centuries ago. These are perhaps things that are happening now, or may have only come to light in the last decade or so. Has it caused significant death and perhaps untold injury to that surrounding community? Is it something that governments or even international agencies are able to respond to effectively, not just to protect and safeguard the surrounding waterways or the inhabitants of that area, but to punish, if that word could be used, those who knowingly or should have known that their behavior could result in what in fact transpired? Or is it that much is spent, to try to cover up and hide that behavior? Now, when saying that, let's go back to governments who may believe that the country is best served by doing certain things. Well, should it be able to do as it wishes during its time in office, or should there be some other additional checks and balances, some other means to not just review it after the fact, but to weigh in and see if it's something that should be approved? Take, for instance, a government that decides that it wants to raise additional revenue by putting up, taxes in a certain area, or it wants to introduce taxes, not just increase those, but introduce new ones. Many would probably read in history the famous words, no taxation without representation. Well, is that what happens in many places? Or if the government of the day says, we believe that this tax, if it's increased by this amount, would not only raise revenue but perhaps discourages behavior, the so-called sin taxes. Now, do they work? Many would question it. I think back to a few decades ago, the government of the day had proposed to increase the taxes on alcohol in particular, and there was a large gathering that of the public, perhaps encouraged heavily by merchants and some village, just motivated in other ways, and a large attendance. Some of us attended to see exactly how this would transpire, some as part of our jobs in order to report accurately and timely, some caught up in the momentum, others very, very much engaged. Now, that sort of citizen participation can have significant positive impacts. Is that the behavior that we need? Is it what we're seeing, for instance, in Canada, where a particular set of workers being supported decide that certain things offend their fundamental freedoms. We think back to unions, whether teachers or others go on strike. They may have sit-ins. They may show up to work and they may decide that very consciously certain things won't get done in their normal time-sensitive manner. Now, there are consequences for that, but that may be part of their collective bargaining tool. The notion of introducing unions for some seem to be the only answer. For others, it may seem to be the start to a growing divide. But is a union of workers any different from a trade association or some other entity that guys under the guise of a professional association coming together to look out for the interests of its members, whether the members are of a particular profession or a particular industry, to ensure that there's a code of conduct, perhaps certain accepted business standards or ethics. Well, perhaps it depends on your perspective. 8949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261, and share your thoughts with us. Now, the idea of sharing that with you stems from two things. A couple of conversations with some individuals, some of whom very, very, very much engaged in the society and looking to find a way that people can move forward, especially now, given the challenges, both the financial difficulties that men are facing, as well as the notion that as things change, their employment prospects could be hindered, their prospects for promotion could be hampered, the fact that they may not necessarily feel as confident that their employment will be sustained. Not only that individual who's working for company A or company B, but that individual for whom this business not only was a long, very deliberate, conscious, active service and sacrifice to get it to where it is, and now for whom many other employees are dependent for their salaries and their livelihoods. But that person now also needs that continued and sustained income to maintain the lifestyle which that business once provided. Will those things create challenges if the practices and other continued endeavors put the business in peril? Well, where we are. And I asked that to share the caller, Belika's call earlier about those 3 points relative to employment. We know that the job is only notion is something that is very much at the front and center of many people's discussions. We know there were attempts at introducing legislation. We know that in some countries that is the practice. We also know that working for government may require certain clearances and certain allegiances. You may not be able to work for the central government if you're not a citizen of the country, or you may not be able to work beyond a certain level if you're not a citizen of the country. We also know that some countries pass legislation that say ownership of certain industries can't be foreign owned or can't be any more than X% foreign ownership. Yet when those things are discussed in this country, not necessarily the most instructive, informative, or engaging discussion, but one that seems to be emotive. Now, he also shared that maybe the immigration laws and regulations should require, and if they don't already, they should be enforced, that succession plans come into play. The idea that within the civil service, are there certain things that happen to ensure better and more engaging employment? But what about, let's say, for instance, use the civil service as an example. Job has been advertised, and is it fair and just? Is it the best thing to do that is advertised for internal applicants only? So if you're not already employed within the civil service, you can apply for it. Or should it be a wide net, open to any and everyone, or should that net only be restricted to Caymanians? Yeah, what is fair? 8949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261. Now, many of these questions don't necessarily, not necessarily ask to inflame people or to disrespect. Sometimes, we be mindful that someone would ask, hey, you should say this, suggest that you should do that. And it's akin to, backing water from. But maybe there's a way, need and a purpose for these discussions to unfold. And so if we can be of value, we will. We'll pause quickly and take this short break. When we come back, more Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
For information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM for Cayman's Straight Talk Morning Show. For the record.
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record.
Brought to you by
Coca-Cola. Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola.
As seniors, we owe it to each other to stay safe and healthy through this pandemic. Let's make sure that our COVID-19 vaccinations are up to date, including getting boosters, and be aware of your surroundings so that we can manage the conditions that make us more vulnerable. Remember, we're in this together, so do your part. Get boosted. You can visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus to learn some more.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thanks for sharing with us as we go straight to our phones. Hey, good afternoon, welcome, thanks for calling.
Hello, good afternoon, Sterling. How are you doing?
Hey, very well. How about you, man?
I'm not doing too bad, man. I didn't intend to call you 2 days in a row, but obviously it's always good to hear open mic and you can share ideas and on different topics.
Indeed, man. That's what's important. Once we can get that dialogue and people share that perspective. Yeah?
Well, what I will say is that what I found interesting, I saw an article come out where they will be implementing some rules for the real estate industry, which that's been like kind of a pet peeve of mine for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of understanding how important the real estate industry is to the Cayman Islands, because we market ourselves very well, right, for inward-bound investment.
Mm-hmm.
And one would have thought that putting all that emphasis on inward-bound investment to come to the Cayman Islands and invest here by way of buying properties, homes, condos, whatever it is, you would have thought that that industry would have been secured and carved out, and for Caymanian participation only. So I find it very comforting to see that the government is now getting ready to implement that if you can't be in a work permit and sell real estate, which is a good step. That's the first positive step. The second step should clearly be that if you're not a Caymanian, you can't sell real estate here, and obviously, you know, this situation that Sariba currently has a chokehold on the industry, that has to be dissolved and done away with as well, because if we're gonna make a proactive change to an industry that has generated a high level of wealth for all of those whom have taken advantage of it and gotten into that, and we see that the wealth distribution has been somewhat kind of tapered to a certain direction, or to the brokerage companies and houses that are the ones reaping the benefits, who are a part of the Sariba Baran, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that as a government, we sit down, we analyze all of the fundamentals of this particular industry, and the key point is that this last year gone, we had over $1 billion in land sales. So you know that's an extremely large amount of commissions that have been paid throughout that industry. So one would have liked to have been comforting to know that commission had went to the local participants if they were secured to be the only ones. And don't get me wrong, you know, Sterling, I don't want anybody to feel as if I come in across anti anything or anti people. The reality is that the Cayman Islands is a small 3 islands in the Western Caribbean that has zero natural resources for export, and everything that we provide to generate GDP is services, right? So at the very very least, we must secure that some of the premier services that we provide is secured for the Caymanian population and the well-being for their survival, so that the wealth can be generated amongst those Caymanians, so that they can too enjoy a certain level of comfort from financial security.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have seen where the distance between what someone may call a real estate broker or a real estate officer compared to a average salesperson, we've seen where that difference has been highlighted. And yes, we need professionalism when it comes to selling real estate. We need people who understand the system, but it's not rocket science. You don't need a bachelor's degree in order to sell real estate. And you and I both know that there's a lot of Caymanians that are not able to go off to get tertiary education, to get any big degrees and any big institutions to have some sort of financial security or have some sort of small wealth grown amongst their ability to work for. So when we find industries like the real estate industry, which has been very, very, very good to a lot of people, shouldn't it be one of those things that we made sure was secured and allocated and carved out, and whatever training process and programs that need to be in place to make sure that the Caymanians who participate are the ones who are capable of and have the ability to do that? So I'm very encouraged by seeing this article taking this first step, and I hope that there are many other steps coming behind that in terms of, you know, dissolving the Sariba stronghold on the industry, creating a general. First thing we got to do is make sure that only Caymanians can sell real estate and get licensed to sell real estate in Cayman. Then we have to have a general registry for all real estate that is registered to be sold, where those licensed real estate brokers can go in, pay an annual fee to access that registry through the government, and any realtor that is licensed in this country and eligible to sell real estate in this country have the ability to sell any of those registered properties, and they market it the best way they can, and made the best realtor win that commission. And that's how it should be, a fair, level playing field. Now, before I leave, because I don't want to stay on too long, I will point out one other issue that we are facing in the real estate industry. We're finding where the brokers are partnering with developers and buying out all of the pre-construction complex units, and then resell them for retail at a higher price, which is what's driving the cost of real estate through the roof. So we know that some developers require a certain percentage sold pre-construction in order to get full financing from whoever their financier is, whether it's a bank or a private investor. And then what we see is where brokerage companies are going in, and they pay the deposit on those certain percentages in order to get the financing for that developer, and then they retail those. So the average person never see the pre-construction price, which is reduced.
Right. But to that point, I mean, I don't want to impose on you too much, but to that point, let's say that let's allege that the developer A has a 15-unit condo complex or 30-unit, whatever, right? And through friends and family and brokers, realtors, they buy 50%, 70%, and then use that to go to the bank. Say, hey, we got pre-sales. But if they're not able to resell, and there's a risk to do that, so they're willing to take it. What's the challenge? I mean,
So are you saying that the brokers are taking a risk by buying them at pre-sale at pre-construction prices to have to resell them at retail?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, there is that risk.
Well, first of all, let's just be very clear in this, Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
Is that when you look into certain areas of development, where those developments are taking place, certain areas. I ain't talking about Pooh Road and Olympia Pearson bypass.
Okay.
Let's just call a spade here this afternoon.
Okay.
I'm talking about in the elite neighborhoods in this country,
mm-hmm.
where they want to ensure that only the elite stays. They want to make sure that the price point is never low enough for an average Caymanian to poke his nose anywhere near there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So let's make this very clear.
Mm-hmm.
That if we are too blind to see what is happening in our country, and it's happening right before our very eyes,
mm-hmm.
you have these developers who build in the elite areas, who work hand in hand with certain brokers, who already have people lined up from across the board, with tons of wealth in order to buy these places. So they taking very little risk, knowing that these elite areas have a very high resale value,
mm-hmm.
and they have a lot of clients who wants to live in those neighborhoods from abroad and all over the place. So therefore, their risk is very, very,
right.
very limited.
So are we then saying that, alleging that there could be the perception of insider trading?
Well, I would eliminate the thought process of insider trading. I wouldn't go that far, Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Let me tell you why. Because there's nothing on our books that says that what they're doing is illegal.
Okay, and then what about the notion that let's just say as an example, hypothetical project is on the table, financing is required from the bank, but the bank says this, and we won't finance this unless you have 50%, 60% pre-sales. And they go and they present the bank with these pre-sales of 50%, 70% to certify the bank, but they are from people who probably intend to try to resell them to make a profit.
Perfectly, but Sterling, hold on a second.
Mm-hmm.
What you must understand, right, that right now currently
mm-hmm.
that is not illegal. And number one,
mm-hmm.
the bank don't care who buys 50% of the required amount to get financing.
Mm-hmm.
Bank just want to know that you got 50% of committed sales, that when this thing is finished construction, that the sale goes through at a certain time so that ROI is returned. So
mm-hmm.
the bank is not there to ask you, well, who bought the 50%? No. And right now, the way it sits is that there's no current laws restricting brokerage companies or real estate companies from buying pre-construction properties.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I'm raising the point. Our government and our legislators and our policymakers need to identify that one of the driving factors in real estate and one of the driving factors why the average person ain't buying anything of any real value in any real neighborhood that has high resale value is because these are the type of mechanisms that are counterproductive against people, the average person. So they need to legislate laws to prevent that from happening. Now the developers will go up, the developers and the brokers will go up in arms. They will spend an immense amount of time and money trying to prevent the government from preventing that from happening. Listen, if Caymanians, and let me tell you this, if Caymanians want to own a piece of the Caymanian dream and the Caymanian pie, they all need to get up now and stand up and represent themselves as a Caymanian and and I'm talking about those who have come here and become Caymanians and those who have come here, participated and called Cayman home. I'm talking about everybody collectively. And I can tell you the real estate industry, Sariba has been running unbridled for way too long. And it's time to put an end to that.
and that needs to end now. We have way too many smart Caymanians who can participate in that field and can generate enough wealth for their family and generational wealth for us to sit back and turn a blind eye and allow it to continue to happen and just complain about it under our organic tree. No. Now that the government has taken the first initial step, kudos to them. Thank you very much. Now it's time to carry this thing all the way home to home base. That's my contribution for today.
All right. Thank you very much. Always engaging. Because the news from Open Line, and as we go into our news break, we remind you that you can call and share your thoughts with us. We want to hear your perspective. You may agree with things that are said. You may have a different view. There may be something that hasn't been, talked about in a while. You may want to talk about something completely new. Well, toll free with the compliments of Flo. 1-800-534-8255 or 949-8037, 949-6990. And of course, you can WhatsApp at 925-3261. Share your thoughts with us. It's about engaging and being involved and informed. And at the end of the day, if we can do that in a space where people appreciate that there be different views and opinions, the discussion helps us to be informed, well, so much the better. As we go to our news, Ms. Susan, when we come back, there'll be more talk today.
We bring the sacrifice of praise into the house of the Lord.
Radio Cayman, this is how we wake you up in the morning. Praise time on Radio Cayman.
Sing your praise to the Lord. Come on, everybody, stand up and sing one more. Hallelujah, give your praise to the Lord. We are united in Jesus Christ. We are the soldiers of the land.
Praise time.
Weekday mornings from 6 until 6:30.
There's a meeting up in heaven. Roll call. It's a name in the Lamb's Book of Life. Roll call, brother, sister. Roll call. If you don't stop shouting, if you don't stop dancing, we're going to put you out of our church.
Praise time.
Jesus in the morning, yeah.
Weekday mornings from 6 until 6:30.
Your song flowed through my lips. Your work moved through my hands. Your thoughts stay on my mind. Live in me.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. Cayman Islands visitors from the West Coast, U.S. will experience flying the newest jet fleet in the Caribbean when Cayman Airways nonstop flights from Denver, Colorado to Grand Cayman resumes on February 26th of this year. Cayman Airways Denver route is being offered in partnership with the Ministry of Tourism and Transport and the Cayman Islands Department of Tourism and will operate through August 6th, 2022. In international news, the U.S. is offering two $10 million rewards for information on anyone responsible for a terror attack on Kabul airport. At least 185 people, including 13 American troops and 3 Britons, died in the suicide bomb attack during evacuation of the city in August 2021. President Joe Biden promised to hunt down those responsible, saying the U.S. would not forgive the perpetrators. Mary Margaret Kruper, a retired nun, admitted that she had broken her vow of poverty by stealing $835,000 from a California school where she worked to fund her gambling. She will spend a year and a day in prison for wire fraud and money laundering. For over a decade, Kruper embezzled funds from tuition and donations to the St. James Catholic School where she was principal. Jane Campion's The Power of the Dog, an intense Western starring Benedict Cumberbatch, leads this year's Oscar nominations with 12. It is closely followed by Dune, which is 10, and Belfast and West Side Story, which have 7 each. These are your latest headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. For the latest in news and information,
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for sharing with us. It's open line as we, go into the last half hour or so of our program. Want you to be a part of the discussion. 949-8037, 949-8037, 949-6990. That's 949-6990. Of course, toll free, 1-800-534-8255. That's 1-800-534-TALK. That gets you into the program, and we want to hear from you. And of course, you can WhatsApp 925-3261. As you're sharing your thoughts, with us, a couple of quick comments were shared during the break in relation to a number of things. First and foremost, a handful of calls. Maybe Johan has more than 5 on it, but there were 6 messages in particular that agreed with the caller before in terms of, the stranglehold and the perception of people being excluded and the alleged practices and the need for government to intervene. I did message one person and say, well, how much of government intervention do we want, and in what facet, and in what area? Now, sometimes it's important that the government provides the requisite legislation and the tools to enforce it. But again, is it for the community to be engaged and informed? But the callers, the messages off air agreed, with the caller and the perspective. The other comment off air had to do with the way we approach certain things and the practices, the completion of forms, the information that is sort of requested when we are filling out the forms. The comment being that in many instances, many forms either are designed, in other jurisdictions and just applied here. So even the way that the street address or the physical address and information is asked doesn't necessarily align with the practices here. B, alleged that sometimes the forms are almost skewed, as if the person completing the form does not only reside here, but isn't from here. And then the third thing, is it necessary in some forms to distinguish between, Caymanian, the status holder, and, permanent resident, and some other category? Do we now need to be a little bit more understanding as we try to elicit certain information that we are asking forms that may not inadvertently offend the sensibilities of some? Well, what I say, he who feels it knows it. And it's perhaps only when something is right there in front of you that you now have to engage that thing that you actually understand why others, when faced with that same plight, may have in your minds been complaining. 949-8037, 949-6990, or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. Now, we had a rather lengthy message, almost bordering on an epistle to the message sender. I did respond saying, I will read it over again. I certainly did not get through it during the break. There were a number of points that were raised, and given our comments thus far, I think the salient ones that would sort of be more or most relevant to the things that we discussed so far. I made a reference earlier to someone who has shared about the recent disclosure that there was a release of an Auditor General's report unofficially. Now, you can term that how you wish, and the person sending the message said, but if the media gets hold of something and is inquiring about it, as allegedly has happened, and there isn't any response or a timely response, isn't it the media's obligation, absolute duty, to now bring it to the public? And when the media does that, is that a good thing? Is it health and strength of demonstrating that it is a democracy, especially if that thing could affect the country, either because it's being done or not being done by a government, or happen in the private sector? Now, what do you think? Is that not what we ask of the media, or is it maybe too much? The other point in that is that when something happens, where is the response to ensure that it's acknowledged and addressed? Or at times is the response to point fingers or to try to I wish I could phrase it and read to you how it's phrased in this message, but maybe steer away the discussion from that thing so that we focus on something else. Well, what do you think? 949-8837, 949-6990, or toll free 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261. It's an interesting, as I look at this comment, this person is saying that maybe we're having unreasonable expectations. We don't really appreciate, what it is that is happening, and we want to see one side of the picture. And this messenger, I think, as I read what is being sort of typed here, this messenger, I've extended invitation, at some point, be my guest or call in, because it's important. The response to that was that no, people seem to be more concerned with, who's saying something as opposed to how it's said. As I reread what was said earlier, is that the problem? We all know, as it say, who's doing what to whom and when and why and how. But when it's not a good thing, as long as it not happen to us, then that's okay. This person's response to that was that that's the problem. We know that if you stand up for something as right and just as it is, you're going to probably be standing alone. And for disclosure, this is not someone I know, as it were. But that doesn't matter. That the person is sharing a thought. And it doesn't matter if the person is here at the present time. What is important is that we engage. And now, if someone calls up and it's a known voice, and they say something that we, believe to be sensible, would we not believe it because it's being said by someone we know and we ourselves don't have the favorable, perception or impression of that person? Sadly, that may be what happens. The other point that we'll share with you from our messages is this notion that we talk about looking at how this person, what government spends, and not understanding and appreciating that the government of the day can and should be able to spend and allocate its resources the way that they think would either A, best serve their interests for re-election, and B, serve the interests of the country. To paraphrase, this person is saying basically that's why you have a democracy, not a dictatorship. The government of the day is first and foremost looking at being re-elected. They're not just there volunteering or to go in and do something, and even if it's a great thing, if there's not a prospect of it leading to their re-election. It's not, if I might read this message with this sender's consent, and says, I am not by any shape, form, or fashion anti-expat or anti-development or anything, but there is a visible line that has been drawn, and sometimes it's not us against them, but them against us. And that goes across the board in many areas. And speaking to the substantive issue of real estate, real estate is one of those. It is a dog-eat-dog world in which Caymanians are being fought against. We need a Caymanian think tank to try and keep us in the loop to just survive. And I read that with the senders, sort of, delayed acquiescence to ask, when we term things, when we go out and gather, is it networking or are we gossiping? Are we out, happy hour and socializing? Or are we out, creating bridges and exchanging information and understanding? And when we are together as people, are we there to offer up help and to see how we can be of value? Or are we there to, find out about other people's business and join with others to, take them down and keep them down? Well, maybe it's not what was said by any, but maybe as we listen to this, is that part of the challenge that in our society we're not finding ways to appreciate how the collective efforts can be more meaningful and long-lasting. It's not a question that in a capitalist society with the approaches that we have, that we're not going to try to see what, our efforts lead to the best outcomes. But at the end of the day, are we more willing to look at things in a better light? Isn't it interesting? A fellow shared this earlier today, just today alone, after the presentation with the students, that when it comes to the space that we find ourselves in, the freedoms that we'll give up because we are threatened by our health and well-being, and that is understandable. You say, by the same token, if you would ask people to be very collective in their endeavors when it comes to education or healthcare, whether it's the collective payment for education by the society, or for health insurance, or for healthcare, some would see that as socialism and therefore a bad thing. But is it not the same thing? He asked the question, well, what if the ask of the populace is, well, we are concerned about the environment, so maybe we need a carpool. Maybe we need to, walk more and drive less. Or maybe we need to look more closely at the resources we're consuming, using and abusing. There are some who responded immediately and with valiant efforts. And then there are some who would say, well, this is how I do it, and this was convenient for me. So, just me one won't make a difference. Well, that one person might decide, one person can make a difference and will change the buying patterns. Perhaps maybe change the product because of its packaging. May decide to not use the product at all because, it goes, into the drains, and that drain leads to somewhere that could have, untold consequences. Maybe that particular food, the way it's sourced and the way it's shipped, different things. But for some, it doesn't matter. Well, can one make a difference? Well, if the collective view on, say, education and healthcare, as the person shared, is seen to be, a socialized or a socialistic approach when it comes to how it's paid and how it's accessed, well, is that the mindset that needs to be addressed? All right, final break for today's production, as we invite you to be a part of it. When we return, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp, 925-3261. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
How can you take your business from good to great and thrive in the new normal? By finding the smartest, most powerful IT solutions to optimize your business operations. And now, Digicel Business Hub is making it simple for you. High-speed Wi-Fi, mobile and office phones, IT security, Microsoft Office with Teams, and much more. Everything your business needs to level up in the new normal. Get world-class IT for your business with Digicel Business Hub. Sign up today. Call us on 623-2499 or visit our website www.digicelbusiness.com for more information.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261, and invite you to be a part of a discussion as we shared. What's interesting sometimes as we read some of the messages, and I don't know if it happens to you. It certainly happens to some of us. We're typing something, and when we send it, we realize, that wasn't the word I put there. These smartphones believe somehow that they're smarter than us, and this message came back through, and seemingly the sender said, I'm convinced I typed this word, not this word that was sent. But thanks, person says, for not reading like that, because it would not have made any sense. Hey, listen, we understand sometimes we're rushing, sometimes it's not our fault, it's just the way these phones seem to take it, man. And it's always, I think, important that we have a sense of appreciation for each other, and a sense of respect. That's sort of, saying that as what transpired isn't to talk of the school, but to relay and as best convey to you that we're very cognizant of maintaining as best as we can, that confidence, that we'll be receptive as well as respectful, of your comments. And for us, it doesn't matter, who says the comment, whether you're working or retired, whether you're in the country or not, if your perspective is relevant, if it's a perspective that you want to share, we're happy to relate. Now, there are times it's not easy to really decipher what is being said, partly because I think we have adopted a text speak. Sometimes the way it's being said might not necessarily be as helpful. Not that the person is prejudiced against something or is being otherwise antagonistic. It's just that it's perhaps not the most responsible way. So we do try to share your thoughts as best as we can with what you said, but not always verbatim. And hopefully that helps us to still, express your thoughts in that way, without editing so much that you feel as if, we censored you. But the best way sometimes to share your thoughts is to call. And that way, you can take ownership, and you can say, well, they heard it from the horse's mouth, as it was. Now, interesting saying, I mean, they didn't say, heard it from the duck's quack, but the horse's mouth. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Now, it is, the month of February. We're in, as New Year again. Many of us are still trying to navigate away from what has been seemed to be the life we've endured the last 2 years. Some are trying to find a way to navigate to something better, whether that's a new employment, new business venture, a relationship of sort, whether that's romantic or otherwise. And I say that because come Monday, it's the eat all you can eat chocolate day, right, Miss Susan? It's not about the flowers and the roses; it's about the chocolate and the love for chocolate. That's what I think in a way, and dark chocolate in particular. And many of you would probably recognize how so much of things are being commercialized, so that the sentiments expressed and the sentimental value attached to celebrations are not real. They're all about some marketing ploy, some conceived and contrived notion to exploit, as it were. Get you to part with an extra dollar, get you to become enamored with something, as opposed to that true perspective of engagement. Well, as we go into it, maybe the love that we express for each other, first and foremost, is that agape love, and the amorous love that we do show is reserved for that one that has captivated our heart, for whom our ages are not too dissimilar, and our behaviors are always responsible and respectful. And when we do look at the way life evolves and has unfolded, sometimes we'll awaken one day and realize we were in a bit of a stupor for so long, because life then has moved on a few decades, and some maybe as much as a half a century, without appreciating that there was little or no joy, or it wasn't as fulfilling or engaging. It's kind of like watching a very animated domino game. The fun that flows from the table as the four assemble, not playing a game of an individual approach, but I have a partnered perspective. Each team worrying as to how much cheating the other one is doing in their coding and the like. For the victory isn't about financial windfall. It's about the bragging rights, to say you defeated this other team that is held in high esteem, and the camaraderie that sort of returns, sometimes daily or every week at an appointed time in that anointed place, by those highly esteemed individuals. Well, that is the sort of love for the game and for each other that you may not necessarily appreciate or respect. Now, that is the love that unifies, our communities. We certainly love our listeners. We certainly appreciate when you do share your thoughts. And in the sort of words as best as possible of some of our younger students and at their behest, a few have shared, that whether they'll be graduating this year, understanding that may not take the form that they had initially expected. It's probably and hopefully and prayerfully will be different than what it was, last year and the year before, not just here but elsewhere. But one young man had said that, given all that has, been his school sort of days in the last couple of years, has caused him to rethink what he wants to study. Will he be able to travel overseas? Does he even want to travel overseas? And in somewhat of a very, very, sort of wise perspective, but with a sense, from the adults present, including the teachers and parents, is there a growing sense of despair, and is the individual students starting to feel despondent? He asked, what is the point? His older sibling is at university, still in some days, in class, but heavily distanced and masked. Some days, remote, either as a live class session unfolds, or the class is uploaded and you have to access it, within a certain time frame, and then revisit. Well, what does that do for learning? And this is one of our youngest students here in school. And I say the wisdom because his questions seemingly would impact his decisions, no matter how much the parents or the teachers may try to encourage. I think some would appreciate that traveling, overseas to university, whether it's a semester or a year, or whether you're at one and then you go out to another for a short time. That in itself is a level of instruction, experience, and education. But it begs the question, what are we doing within our own shores to ensure that we raise the standard of education, its access, and do all we can to ensure that our people are not only socializing, but are socialized in a way that contributes to them being the very best citizens as they impact society, and being the very best themselves as society impacts them. Well, please join us tomorrow for more Talk Today right after the midday news and midday meditation. We have a few things in store for our discussion. We hope to start out the discussion, with our friends from the Cayman Heart Fund. We also have a discussion, being Wednesdays and government comes on. We're going to be talking about, chemicals and radiation capacity building and response readiness. Very important and timely discussions, given that, we have to look at things in that perspective. Well, thanks again to Ms. Susan for doing a valiant effort in facilitating the many little technical hitches and glitches that we may have from time to time. And to you for listening and sharing your thoughts. And hopefully, increasingly, we start to appreciate and respect that it is more the message that we should heed and not so much be disparaging of the messenger. And 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255 is the number, that is generously provided by Flo. We thank them for that. So use it tomorrow to call Mr. Art in the morning as you engage him in the record. And of course, stay tuned, for everything Radio Cayman has to offer, so that when the midday news and meditation and the weather comes along, well, you'll be right here ready for us at Talk Today. Yesterday she played some great songs, and you may have missed the one by Billy Joel because it wasn't, the first song that played. But if you want to know what that song is, right, and I'll give you a prize, and Susan will tell me if you call and say so. She played a song with Billy Joel that a country song writer and singer also shares. If you remember that song and you tell it her accurately, see me again and I'll buy you a wonderful cup of tea from Tea Time in Cayman. All right. Until tomorrow, my friends, may this afternoon be a very blessed, productive, enjoyable evening. Do as I intend and not necessarily as I've been avoiding recently. Let's go outside, get some sunshine, some fresh air, and some exercise, because really and truly, that, as my good friend says, that's the shot. That gets you going. A walk on the beach might be the thing that you need. In fact, that might just be the thing that I might do. Good suggestion from Susan. All right. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Shaken yet standing firm.
I was not built to break.
This is Radio Cayman.